Archipelagos of the World, written by Edward Allen Kurtz.
Contents at a glance.
What is an archipelago? An archipelago is a group of islands. An archipelago can be made up of just a few islands, or it can contain many islands. Another name for an archipelago is an island group. This means that the islands are grouped together in a cluster. Archipelagos can also be called island chains. These consist of several or many islands that are close to each other and that are located in the water one after another. They form a chain or string of islands. Let's learn more about archipelagos. Types of archipelagos. There are two main types of archipelagos. The first type is called oceanic. This type of archipelago is found out in the middle of the ocean and is not located close to a continent. The Hawaiian Islands chain is an example of this kind of archipelago. These islands are 1,860 miles from the closest continent. The second kind of archipelago is called continental. This type of archipelago is found close to a continent. For example, the British Isles are a group of islands located about 20 miles from the continent of Europe. How are archipelagos formed? There are several ways that archipelagos can be formed. They are often formed by volcanic activity. Oceanic islands are usually formed by volcanoes. The Hawaiian Islands are both oceanic islands and volcanic islands. An archipelago can also consist of coral islands. These are formed when colonies of corals grow on top of each other until they reach the surface of the water. Continental islands like the British Isles were once part of the continent, but when sea levels rose, they were cut off from the continent and became islands. What is an island arc? The Earth is made up of giant plates called tectonic plates. These are like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and sometimes they move. This is what causes volcanoes and earthquakes. An island arc is an archipelago that is in the shape of an arc. An island arc is usually made up of volcanic islands that are found at a place where two tectonic plates meet. Japan is an example of an archipelago, and an island arc made up of volcanic islands. Not all island arcs are volcanic. There are non-volcanic island arcs in the Mediterranean Sea. The largest archipelago in the world. The largest archipelago in the world is the Malay archipelago. Malay is a word that is used to describe a group of people and a language in Southeast Asia. The name of the country called Malaysia comes from this word. This archipelago stretches from mainland Southeast Asia to the continent of Australia. It sits between two oceans, the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. More than 350 million people live on the 25,000 islands of the Malay archipelago, and it includes countries like Brunei, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The archipelago with the most islands. The Malay archipelago is the largest archipelago because when you put its 25,000 islands together, you get a large area of land. However, there are more than 65,000 islands in the Swedish East Coast archipelago. Some of the islands in this archipelago are small, which is why this archipelago is not the largest in the world. It is located off the coast of Sweden in Scandinavia, which is in the northern part of Europe. This island chain begins near the capital city of Stockholm and stretches down to the Baltic Sea. Famous archipelagos, the Malay archipelago. The Malay archipelago is not only the largest archipelago in the world, it is also made up of some of the most interesting islands in the world. Borneo is the third largest island in the world, and it is divided between 3 different countries: Brunei, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Bali is part of Indonesia and is famous for its beautiful nature and culture. There are many different ethnic groups in these islands and several religions including Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam. There are many volcanoes in this area. Famous archipelagos. The Canadian Arctic Archipelago. The Canadian Arctic Archipelago is also sometimes called the Arctic Archipelago. It is found at the northernmost part of the continent of North America, north of the mainland of Canada in the Arctic area. It is the second largest archipelago in the world, and it has about 36,000 islands. The islands of this archipelago stretch from the Hudson Bay north towards Greenland, and west across the north of the Canadian mainland towards Alaska. Not many people live here because of the climate. Some Inuits live on the southern islands. Famous archipelagos. The Japanese archipelago. The Japanese archipelago is the third largest archipelago in the world. It forms the country of Japan and is found in the Pacific Ocean along the northeastern shores of the continent of Asia. It is made up of 2 island arcs, the northeastern Japan Arc and the Sakhalin Island Arc. There are nearly 7,000 islands in this archipelago, but only about 400 are inhabited. The 4 main islands from north to south are Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu. The capital of Japan, Tokyo, is located on Honshu Island. Famous archipelagos. The British Isles. The British Isles make up the 4th largest archipelago in the world. The 2 largest islands in this archipelago are Great Britain and Ireland, but there are over 6,000 smaller islands. About 136 islands are permanently inhabited. This archipelago is located just off the northwestern coast of the continent of Europe. Most of the islands that make up the British Isles are generally flat. The highest point is a mountain called Ben Nevis, and it is about 4,400 feet high. Summers in this archipelago are warm, and the winters are usually mild. Famous archipelagos. The Galapagos Islands. The Galapagos Islands are a famous archipelago made up of volcanic islands. They are located in the Pacific Ocean, 563 miles west of Ecuador, on the continent of South America, and they are a part of Ecuador. These islands are famous because of the large number of endemic plants and animals. Charles Darwin visited these islands on a ship called the Beagle, and he studied the wildlife. Today, there are about 25,000 people who live and work on the Galapagos Islands. Famous archipelagos. The Hawaiian Islands. The Hawaiian Islands form an archipelago of 8 major islands and many smaller islands and atolls. They are located in the North Pacific Ocean and stretch for about 1,500 miles northwest from the southernmost island called the Island of Hawaii, also known as the Big Island, to the Kure Atoll. When Captain James Cook discovered these islands, he called them the Sandwich Islands in honor of the British Earl of Sandwich. Volcanoes still erupt today, and the Big Island continues to grow. Famous archipelagos. The Aegean Islands. The Aegean Islands form an archipelago in the Aegean Sea, which is a part of the Mediterranean Sea. These islands are found to the east and south of Greece and to the west of Turkey. The island of Crete marks the southern limit of the islands. Most of the islands in this archipelago belong to Greece, but some of the smaller islands close to the mainland of Turkey are owned by that country. The ancient Greek name for the Aegean Sea was archipelago, and this is where today's word for a group of islands comes from. Interesting facts. The Malay archipelago includes the island of Java, the world's most populous island with over 130 million people. There are over 130 islands, reefs, and atolls in the Hawaiian Islands archipelago. An island that is formed by coral and is in the shape of a ring is called a coral atoll. The Japanese archipelago is made up of about 3,000 islands, and there is a lot of volcanic activity still going on today. Most archipelagos are found in oceans, but there are freshwater archipelagos like the Montreal Islands and the Lake Erie Islands. Bermuda is an archipelago that is made up of 181 islands. Today, the island of Hawaii, or the Big Island, is the southernmost island in the Hawaiian Islands archipelago. But a new island called Lo'ai is being formed on the ocean floor southeast of the Big Island, and someday will break the surface and a new island will be born. Finland's archipelago sea is part of the Baltic Sea and is made up of over 50,000 islands, although many of these islands are quite small. The Alaskan archipelago stretches for about 1,000 miles along the western coast of Alaska. The Galapagos Islands are located in the northern and the southern hemisphere because they sit right on the equator. Many people consider the Maldives in the Indian Ocean to be the smallest archipelago with its 1,200 islands.